In this video, we're going to talk about components and how to pass props down to components. So we have this database ref object over here, and you'll see there's a name, a department, a salary, and there's 3 objects in here. We're going to pass these down to a component called a list item as props, and we're going to be able to print these cards right here, and that shows all the information inside of each object. And then we're going to be able to delete each item as we want to as well by using emitters. And that's what we're going to do in this project today. So we're now starting off with an empty project. And as always, in the description below, if you want to get the starter project so you can follow along, I have included instructions there. Let's get started. The first thing we want to do is to create a component and then initialize that component and print it out in our template in this app.vue area right here. So this is our main part of the application. It's app.vue. And then we have this components folder, which we will put our component in. We already have our component right here called list item. It's currently empty, but let's go ahead and put some information in here, test. And it doesn't show anything yet because we need to register this component into our app.vue right here. So let's go ahead and import it. And then after we import it, we have to then put this component inside of our template. And let's capitalize this because I like to capitalize my components. There, we have our component showing up right now. And so what this is doing is saying in the app.vue area in main, we want to print out component, and we're printing out this component right here. Now that we have registered a component, we want to pass down a prop to this component so we can pass down some data to print some stuff out in the component. We're just going to hard code it at first to see how props work in Vue 3. First, we're going to go ahead and declare the name of the prop. We'll call it name. We're going to say equal quotation signs, and then we're going to pass a string here for a name. We're going to call the name John. And now we're going to go to list item, and in here we have to define the prop to let the child know that it's going to receive a prop. In the composition API Vue 3, we do this by declaring define props, and define props accepts an object. And in this object, we're going to declare the name of the prop, which is name in this case, and we'll declare more to make it more clear later on. And we have to declare the type of variable, and then we have to declare what type of data we are receiving from the parent. And in this case, we are receiving a string. So now that we have it declared, we can go in here. We're going to say name colon, and that's just going to print out as name colon to our template. And now we want to print out the data. So we use mustache syntax, and we're going to say name, and that's the prop that we have received from the parent. And we'll go ahead and click save, and we see here that we received John from the parent. And that's how you pass a prop down to a component. So we're going to head back to app.vue, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this first object and we're going to pass that data into list item so we can show all of that as one whole cohesive component, just to show you what we're trying to get. And then we're going to print all of the data out afterwards. But first, we're just going to start with 1. So we have the name right here, and now we just need a department. Let's just say marketing for now. Get the salary. And then we want as well, we're going to include a position. And let's go ahead and, so we got all of that. Let's just make this a little bit easier to read right here. All right, so now we are passing 4 props down to list item. We are passing the name, the department, a salary, and a position. So now we are going to hard code this first object right here to pass down that information to our list item. And to do this, we need to be able to declare things like numbers and variables inside of our props right here. And for us to do this, Vue requires us to use a directive called vbind. And basically, you can just include a colon before each of these props. And now we're able to declare variables within these quotations. So we're going to declare the database and the position of this database, which is going to be 0. So this first object right here. And then we're going to ask for the name. And let's just make sure it works. All right, see, we see Johnny. So we do receive it, and let's go ahead and do the rest for each of the props. department and salary. And position will be changed later, and we'll show you later in the application. But for now, we're going to keep it at 0. So let's go to list item, and we have to define our props here. So we have the department, which is a string, and then we have the salary, which is going to be a number. Now let's go ahead and correct our component here so it can accept all these data types and print out the data the way we want it to print. So the name is going to be an H2 header. I'm going to say name, colon, mustache syntax, and we're going to put the name right here, and the rest will be p tags. And let's not forget about the position as well, because we're accepting a position. And let's go ahead and just fill all of these out to accept our props and print them out to the template. And this will be department. This will be the salary. And the last part is the position. All right, so we now have all of this printed out. Let's go ahead and check here. We're making a mistake that's not letting us print out all the information like we want to, and let's go ahead and check why. Okay, I see right here. So we had to refresh this, and then we made a typo. These should be department. All right, cool. So it's just a typo error, and now we have all of this information printing out to our template, but it's all hard-coded. We want to print out these list items as a list from our database. So let's just say we're receiving information from a database. We want it to automatically print out all the employees for us instead of us hard-coding each of these list items like this. So let's get started on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use another director from Vue called v4. It's basically like a for loop. And what we want is the item inside of the array we're going to use, which is this database, because these are an array of objects, and we want each object or the item. And then we're also going to include the index, because we want the index in order to print the position of this object that we're printing out from database right here in the position. And we're going to say item index in database. And so that now gives us access to each item in this database right here as a loop. And instead of hard coding this, we can now say we can get item.name instead of database 0, because we're now looping through all the items. And we can also print out the index right here. Now let's go ahead and save that, and we see right here, we just printed out all of these without us having to do anything else like we were doing before. So now we're going to finish this application off by using an emitter. And this emitter is going to allow us to delete each of these singular items from the child component. And how to do that is we have to write a function in our parent component, and it's going to be called delete item. And what that is going to do, it's going to take in the position. So this is position 0, position 1, position 2, and whatever position we receive, it will go ahead and delete that from the database using this delete item function. But we have to be able to call that somehow, and we're going to do that by making a button here inside of list item component, and that button is going to use an emitter, and it's going to say every time we click this button, it's going to emit, and that emit is going to be listened to by this app component, and it will call delete item function, and we'll pass in the position and delete one of these items from the database. So let's first start off by creating the button. We're going to say we're going to call it delete item, and we're going to add a click handler. So every time we click it, it will call something, and in this case, it's going to call an emit. So $emit. And we have to call this emitter something. And we're going to call it delete item. So whenever we click this button, it's going to emit delete item. And wherever we want to listen for delete item from, we can then go ahead and do that by declaring specifically that we're listening for delete item, which I'll show you in just a moment. And then we can also pass in some data with our emitter. In this case, I want to pass in the position. So for example, we're in the list item component, and this is a list item, right? So name Johnny, he's in the marketing department, salary's 30,000, and he's at position 0. So that is all encapsulated in that one component. And then it just prints out 3 times. These are 3 separate components. So for every component, we have a different position. And in this position, I can say, hey, I want to pass this position data to the emitter to let the parent know the exact position of what is emitting, because all of these will have a different button. Let's go ahead and save, and you'll see right here we have a delete item button for each of them, and they all have a different position as indicated by these positions right here: position 0, position 1, position 2, and we are passing those specific positions depending on which one we click, right? So if I click delete item right here, we are passing position 0. If I click this one right here, I am passing position 1, and that will be listened to by the app. Now let's go back to app, and let's just make sure that we are getting this information correctly. Let's call function delete item, and this is going to receive the position, and we're going to console log the position, and it's going to be from delete item function, just so that we know we are calling this correctly. And the last thing we have to do is listen for the emitter in the parent. So right here in the component, we have to declare v_on, and we are listening for the delete item emitter. So that's basically what we're doing right here, is we're listening for delete item, and we want to put something inside these quotations of what we're going to do after we hear this emitter, and we're going to say delete item to signify that we're calling the delete item function. But to be more explicit, let's just call it delete card so we don't get confused here. We're calling it delete card, right? So this delete item v_on is saying, hey, if we hear delete item, then call this function delete card. And delete item comes from this emitter right here in the child component. So when we click the button, it emits delete item, and it passes in the position, right? So we pass in the position, we're listening for it, okay, we hear it, call delete card, and then it will automatically pass in that position data to whatever parameter we have right here, and in this case we called it position. So let's just go ahead and click it and see what happens in our console right here, because we're console logging this, and we see this has 0 delete item function, 1, and here it's 2. All right, so we have all the information that we correctly want. So let's go ahead and delete these items based off clicking the button. So we are going to call this database object right here. We're going to say database, and because it's a ref object, we have to call .value, and it's an array. So we can use an array function from JavaScript. We're going to call splice. And in splice, it's going to ask, okay, where are we going to start our splice? We're going to start it from the position that we're calling from. And then we want to delete 1 item. And that will allow us to delete 1 item at the position that we declare. So let's try this. All right, that was deleted, and that was deleted. And as well, if you haven't noticed, because we are basically using a database ref variable, because it's a ref variable, we have reactivity. So whenever we delete an item, it re-renders the whole entire thing, and it reprints out the list, and therefore the positions are regenerated. So it doesn't matter if we delete from the middle or the end or the start. They all get recalculated in their proper positions, so we don't have to really bother with that as well. And so now we can just delete whatever we want to delete. Thank you for watching. I hope this tutorial helped you out, and if it did, please hit the like button and subscribe. As well, this is my website right here, and I have documentation on my website. I have some documentation on props. It shows you all what you need to know about props. I have some stuff talking about emitted events and how all of that works. And as well, I have included 2 more, which is the ref and reactive, because we used ref, and you have to learn about reactivity if you don't know much about reactivity yet. And as well, event handling, because we used v_on directive, and we also used click handlers and things like that. So I have those documentations included in the description below for you to look at, just in case you wanted to learn more. Thank you for watching.